and get started with our Commerce Committee Forum today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. And before we get down to business, I'll see if our chairs or ranking members have any comments.
Good.
None for me, Caroline. I'm anxious to hear what the SBA has for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Senator Martin and Senator Hartley. Any comments or?
No, I ditto my colleague, Senator Martin. Look, very interested to have SBA with us today. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much to our Connecticut Small Business Administration leadership for being with us today. We're delighted to have you. Thank you so much for everything you've been doing throughout this pandemic to help small businesses. We're so grateful to you, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you about programs you have in place to support small businesses in Connecticut during this difficult time. So with that, I will turn it over to you. We are honored to have with us Catherine Marks, the District Director, Julio Cassiano, the Deputy District Director, and Frank Alvarado, our Senior Area Manager, three experts on Connecticut SBA programs. So with that, I want to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourselves and share more about your programs.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to co-chairs Senator Hartley and Representative Simmons. Appreciate the invitation, Senator Martin and Representative Buckby and the other members of the Commerce Committee. I am Catherine Marks, the Director of the Small Business Administration, the Connecticut District Office. And as Carolyn said, along with me virtually, hopefully only on one Zoom call, are Julio Cassiano and Deputy District Director, and Frank Alvarado, who is our Senior Area Manager in our Bridgeport office, but also, very importantly, he serves as our Veteran Affairs Officer. We truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today regarding the SBA's 2021 COVID economic aid funding. I won't be going through the presentation slide by slide. Instead, we'll give an overview, but the presentation was sent to you, and by all means, it is free for you to share as well. I'll be providing a general overview of the programs that SBA is administering, and these are all related to the provisions in the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues Act, which we call the Economic Aid Act, that was signed by the President on December 27th, 2020. The Connecticut District Office, along with our resource partners, are redoubling our outreach efforts to ensure that Connecticut's eligible entities have the information and the resources they need to access this capital and access this federal aid. Indeed, Congress did intend that this round of COVID-19 economic aid funding is to support the hardest, the smallest businesses, and most importantly, those in the underserved segments of our communities, including women, minorities, and veterans. The SBA and the SBA Connecticut is ensuring that these programs are launched as quickly as possible to deliver this economic aid to America's small businesses. And we're going to cover the economic aid and funding options that are available both in loan form and in grant form. We have different programs, and all of them have very unique eligibility requirements and terms. So the first one is what we all know, the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP. The Act also allows for debt relief for our traditional 7A borrowers. We also have the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is also called EIDL. And we have two new programs, the Targeted EIDL Advance and the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant. We'll go into some of those details and into all those programs for informational purposes. And really what we want to do is make sure that the small businesses and the eligible entities understand these requirements, the terms, and again, utilize this aid to fight this invisible disaster that we all are fighting. So first and foremost, the Paycheck Protection Program. The Paycheck Protection Program reopened on January 11th of 2021 with significant changes and expansion to eligibility. The appropriation in Congress was $284 billion. SBA data as of January 31st indicates that Connecticut small businesses have already surpassed $1 billion for just 2021. What does that mean? That means since the opening in 20 days, 11,600 small businesses in Connecticut, small businesses or entities, accessed $1 billion in federal aid for this PPP funding. We're excited about that, and we want to continue that momentum again for them to be able to get the federal aid that is available. So what are some of the changes? One of the changes is that if an entity did not receive a PPP loan prior to August 9th of 2020, they can apply now. They can go to their lender and apply now. And for the hardest hit small businesses, they can apply for a second draw PPP loan. The forgiveness process has also been simplified for loans under $150,000. And what does that mean? Almost 86% of our PPP loans are indeed under $150,000. So there's a much more simplified loan forgiveness process. So the loan will then turn into a grant. And some other important details. The act includes an increase to eligibility. So more businesses are eligible, and expansion of coverage. Important factors. One, the business needed to be in operation as of February 15th, 2020, and there's a deadline here. The deadline is March 31st, 2021, or with the caveat until before the congressional appropriations are exhausted. So if the congressional appropriations are exhausted, then the program will indeed close. So new applications who didn't receive the PPP loan, they're now referred to as first draw borrowers. And as with the prior PPP in 2020, there are size standards, eligibility criteria, and some limitations. Through our continued outreach, we continue to remind borrowers, and this is so important, that small proprietors, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are eligible to apply for a PPP loan. So if they didn't go to get one in 2020, they can apply now. The eligibility, the expansion of eligibility included expanding it to 501c6 organizations, which are basically chambers, housing cooperatives, and some eligible news organizations. So that's the first draw PPP. So we really want to encourage, again, businesses who didn't take advantage of that in 2020 can do it now. There are some businesses who actually went through the process last year and then never withdrew their application. They can come back and indeed get a PPP loan. For the smallest, the hardest hit businesses, there's a second draw PPP that's available. However, this is very important that for this round, for this second draw, it's a smaller business eligibility. You have to have 300 or less employees. And most importantly, you have to show a reduction of gross receipts of 25%. And yes, it's still a paycheck protection program, paycheck protection loan program which means that you're going to be relying on your payroll cost to determine your loan amount. For most applicants, that loan amount is going to be 2.5 times their average monthly payroll costs. However, and important for our struggling businesses, our struggling restaurants and accommodation businesses here in Connecticut, their loan amount is 3.5 times the average monthly payroll costs. The PPP program is still the same. It's still through a lender. And if they don't have a lender, the SBA has a lender match program. And again, a reminder that the deadline is March 31st or until the funding is exhausted. These PPP loans, if used for eligible expenses, are 100% forgivable. So the loan basically turns into a grant. And the loan process is the same as the application. It's done through the lender. They apply through the lender, and the lender passes it on to the SBA. So that is our PPP program. And again, there's changes, there's a lot of detail, but we're here to help. Next is our EIDL program, which is economic injury disaster loan. So the AID Act increased, extended the deadline for our EIDL loans for COVID-19 till December 31st, 2021. What is an EIDL loan? That is a long-term direct loan to SBA, from SBA, to meet your financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met had the disaster not occurred. They are available for 6 months of working capital and have a maximum of $150,000. So we were speaking with someone yesterday who runs a business. There's not much payroll in the business, but they're getting an EIDL loan to help with the disaster. Again, there are always eligibility requirements, and for EIDL, the businesses must also have 500 or fewer employees. EIDL information is on the website as well as the application, because again, this is a direct loan from the SBA. A new program that has been introduced is the EIDL Targeted Advance Program. And this program is specifically targeted to our low-income communities as defined by the Internal Revenue Code. These are $10,000 grants. What's important about this program is that the SBA is contacting the businesses. So we're in the process right now of contacting those businesses. The next program to talk about is the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant. And I know a lot of people are interested in this. We have, Connecticut is home to just wonderful performing arts. And this is a new program in the Economic Aid Act with an appropriation of $15 billion. An important note here that the applications are not yet open. The applications are not yet open, but there is detail that's coming out that I would love to share. First of all, the eligibility requirements are for live venue operators, promoters, theatrical producers, live performing act organizations, relevant museum operators, zoos, aquarium, and talent representatives. We update information on our website. And this past weekend, we actually updated a frequently asked questions to the program. And my colleague on the call with me today, Frank Alvarado, will be our team lead on the Shuttered Venues Operators Program. So he will be a key person to help ensure that we get the information out to the eligible entities. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of details about these programs. And one of the takeaways that I'd like to take you, to have you take away is that small business owners are not in this alone. Here in Connecticut, small business can access assistance with these federal programs and for state programs through our resource partners. We have fantastic resource partners. In Connecticut, our traditional resource partners include the Connecticut Small Business Development Center, SBDC. These are business advisors that are available statewide. They're in every chamber. They run multiple webinars weekly. They have office hours for Q&A. My colleague on the call today, Julio Cassiano, will be on a call at 12 o'clock where the SBDC is going to talk about the programs for small sole property owners, sole business owners, and really the smallest businesses. We also have the Women's Business Development Council. Again, this is a multi-office resource partner with statewide reach. The WBDC not only helps advise and educate, but they also have grants of their own. So another terrific resource for our small businesses. We have the University of Hartford has an entrepreneurial center and a women's business center. And don't let the title of Women's Business Center, anyone who walks in is helped for free with these resources. The Entrepreneurial Center has focused on webinars, advisors, and programs. SCORE, if you haven't heard of SCORE, it is something definitely that's just a terrific, unique resource, a powerful program that matches up mentors with small business owners and entrepreneurs. And we have 6 chapters of those here in Connecticut. We also have a dedicated Veterans Business Center, regional, that's focused on helping veterans start, run, and expand their businesses. These partnerships with SBA and our resource partners ensure that our smallest businesses can have access to free advice, free help, free education, and free mentorship. But I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that we here at Connecticut SBA are committed to outreach to the hardest hit businesses and those in our underserved segments, including women, minorities, and veterans. Therefore, we have redoubled our efforts and are actively working with our CFI lenders and our non-traditional resource partners. Who are they? Those are organizations like the Black Business Alliance, HEDCO, the Spanish American Merchants Association. Indeed, myself and our team have put together an entire series for the month of February to highlight Black-owned businesses and to have a series of presentations specifically tailored to Black-owned businesses. The Connecticut District Office, through our lending resource partners, continues to provide the support to smallest businesses in the underserved communities to access capital in these very challenging times. So we encourage you to join us, to follow us on Twitter. Always like to put that plug in, SBA_Connecticut for our events, share our updates. We encourage Connecticut small businesses to access these federal programs while they're available and not to do it alone. The SBA and all of our resource partners are here to help. So on behalf of Julio, Frank, myself, and the entire team at the Connecticut SBA, thank you for your time. That was a quick overview of our programs, a lot of information. But as you can see, we're really busy, trying to do our outreach, trying to get these programs out there for Connecticut small businesses, and would appreciate any help and any guidance you can give us at this time. Thank you very much.
Catherine, can I just mention something as far as the shuttered venue grants are concerned?
Sure.
One of the things that's required under the legislation is that the folks the venues that are applying for the grant have a DUNS number. and be registered in SAMS, which is the System for Award Management for the federal government. So if you have a theater or someone in your district that is wants to apply, my advice, our advice is that they go ahead and make sure they have a DUNS number and then go on to the SAM system and register their venue because that can take up to 2 weeks to complete. So this is something that they can start to work on now. And when the grant is finally released or the portal is open, they'll be one step ahead of the game. So just a little bit, a piece of advice on that.
Thank you, Frank. Julio, do you have any comments?
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the interesting things about all of the programs that Catherine highlighted is that the small businesses don't just apply for one. They can apply for all of them, except for the shuttered venue. They could apply for the PPP loan, which is which is based on their employees and their income from the owner. Or they could also apply for the EIDL loan, which is up to $150,000. SBA now has become the largest lender in the United States, surpassing basically Bank of America and some of the larger banks. So right now we're the keepers of lending in the United States as we move forward through the COVID period. So, and then just in Connecticut, same thing. SBA now, if you look at the numbers that Catherine just indicated, over 1 billion, we are now probably the largest, if we are the largest in the nation now, which traditionally that's not our role. Our role basically is to provide financial assistance through the banks or through our CDC and 504 lenders. But because of COVID and the acts through Congress, we've now become the largest provider of capital, and in Connecticut, the 1 billion stands out. So again, the SBA office is here, as Catherine said, to help as well nationally for in terms of providing assistance to other states that also need it.
Thank you.
I think it's important also to mention that in addition to the loan, the products that Catherine talked about, and the programs Catherine talked about, the SBA is still in business of doing their normal programs, our loan lending programs, our normal counseling sessions with clients. So in addition to the COVID related programs, we do have our regular SBA programs. We do offer webinars on programs that we have. So if there's an area that you want more information on, we are happy to put together a webinar for you.
Also, if any of the committee members, I know if you have your own webinars and you want us to participate within your own town, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to come on to the webinar and speak on these programs. So we just want to get the word out, because the money will end by March 31st unless Congress comes back and provides changes. But again, I know that there's a lot of discussion in Washington again, but we could only go by the legislation that was passed on December 27th. That's the legislation that we're working off of right now.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Catherine, Frank, and Julio, for these helpful updates and for describing these programs in place. And Julio, thank you so much for that offer too, to do webinars with legislators for their districts. And if folks are interested in that, what's the best way to set that up? Should they reach out to you directly?
Yeah, they could reach out to me or to Catherine, and then we will schedule it.
It's Catherine, CATHERINE.marks@sba.gov.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
I'll put mine on. It's Julio, Julio JULIO .Casiano, CASIANO @sba.gov, and I put it on the chat site.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for sharing your emails. That's really helpful. And hopefully we won't bombard you with too many. We very much appreciate those offers to do webinars because I think it's just so critical right now to get this information out to small business owners. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Starting with our co-chairs, ranking members, are there any questions?
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Hartley, go.
So first of all, let me just say that this was an invaluable presentation because we know in particular that small businesses are hanging on literally, by their fingernails. And so do you have a slide deck of what you went over here, Catherine?
Yes, I sent Ginger a slide deck, and it's very detailed. And you, by all means, you can share it. This afternoon, I'll also send Ginger 5 tips of what small businesses should know. So if you're doing a constituent newsletter, that would be something very simple and easy to send along. So I'll be sure to send that to Ginger as soon as we're done with this call.
Okay, that would be very helpful. And then all of the contact information that Chairman Simmons just mentioned. So just a few things, and because I'm sure a lot of others, have questions or comments here. For the purposes, edification of, everyone, just define for us 7A borrowers, would you?
Sure. Julio, you want to take that one?
Sure. The 7A, that's our kind of bread and butter program that goes back to the establishment of SBA. That's codified in Congress. That's our lending program. And originally, that used to be a direct loan through SBA. Since the 90s, it's a direct guarantee up to $5 million in the form of, this would be through an FDIC bank. This could also be through a credit union or through a savings bank. There are some licensed lenders that are under the act also that have the ability to lend under the program, but it's limited basically to financial institutions in Connecticut. All the banks that are registered in Connecticut, whether it's Webster Bank, People's, they're all 7A lenders. 7A basically in the form of that loan, we will provide a guarantee right now under the CARES Act. That guarantee can be up to 90%. So the borrower goes to the bank, applies, whether it's $100,000. If the lender, which is one of the issues that's going to pop up as this COVID continues, and if there is a recession that comes right after that, lenders are going to be basically cutting back, curtailing in terms of risk lending, and the way that they're going to be receptive to lending again is through the SBA. That happened back in 2008 under the recession to stimulate lending. SBA again came in the forefront and extended the guarantee up to 90%, including the fee waiver, because the guarantee technically is an insurance policy. So the borrower usually pays a fee, and the fee is predicated on the dollar figure. It could be up to 3% depending on the size of the loan. The guarantee basically is paid at the closing. It could be included in the proceeds of the loan. So that's also being waived. So the fees are being reduced. The guarantee is being increased to stimulate the economy far beyond just the PPP, EIDL, and the shuttered venues. So for traditional lending, that's how the banks are going to come back in terms of getting the guarantee from SBA.
So that's interesting, Julio, because, you referenced 2008. And of course, since that time we've come and we're at the position where we're saying that we believe banks are highly capitalized, and that for our state programs, and I'm referring now to our SBX program, there is proposals for change in that because banks are and have been capitalized. But because of COVID, you think that there will be a retrenchment of that? And will there be something reminiscent to 2008? Because we're looking at some changes in our small business loan program based upon, the robust economy that we have enjoyed up until this point.
Well, banks are based on risk lending, and so coming from a bank, I worked at whether it was Bank of America, PEEP, Bank of America, Fleet, and CBT. They were all on. They just lend based on risk, and so tolerance is one of their appetites, and they are going to look at the market. They are going to look at those particular industries, whether it's restaurants, construction, and make a decision as to whether they're going to be lending into these markets. And if they do tighten up, SBA under our programs, we do not have any how barriers in terms of restaurants, startup businesses. For instance, startup businesses are going to be, in fact, right now, unless they get an SBA guarantee, I doubt there is a bank in the state that would be willing to do a startup loan unless they get a guarantee from SBA.
And basically that's what the proposal is from our traditional SBX program, is to transition to a state guarantee.
That would allow the lender to take that risk, where
Yeah.
it wouldn't be there without the guarantee.
Okay. So, and I don't mean to be monopolizing your time, but I'm wondering, Frank, if you could, you brought up a very important point here about the venue, the operators, the shuttered
Yes, ma'am.
operators is not online yet, but for those to get it teed up, can you give us information that we could help to get out to these entities about, one, reminding them if they have, they're in this, what is it, the SAM system, and also have a number. Can you give us basic information about that, and we can help to get that out, telegraph it?
Yes, ma'am. I can do that. I'm happy to send along the link, the registration link, the informational page. I'll send that off to Ginger, and she can disseminate it to the committee and to others. But it's an important page that has all the information on how to register, how to proceed with securing a DUNS number, and how to register in SAM. So more than happy to get that out to Ginger today.
Okay, and lastly, so there was some significant coverage, and I'm recalling an AP article most recently, which talked about the fact that in this whole process that minority-owned companies waited, and I'm actually reading their headline right now, minority-owned companies waited months for loans that the data is showing now. And there was, I know in my own district, working with, my constituent base, that we had a lot of instances where they're very small, and they were on the bottom of the pile, so to speak, when they went to their lender. And as a result of that, many of them, didn't make the first round. And, we've been trying to make sure that they get in, on the second round. But would you comment on that? I know then there were iterations that changed, which only opened up then to very small businesses first. I think it was for a period of the first 10 days or something like that. But these are the smallest, most vulnerable. These are the barber shops, the little retailers. And then we have that whole tranche of small business, and primarily minority-owned business, that are sole proprietors. And they clearly were on the tail end here. And so would you comment on that?
Sure, I'll comment on that twofold. Number one, where we're sitting right now, reopening the PPP, obviously we're at a very different point than we were last spring when it was opened. There's a little more clarity as to, getting the vaccine and getting us up and open. But even last year, the Connecticut District Office really worked with our resource partners to educate and reach those minority segments and the underserved segment that you're talking about. For example, we did a forum in the north end of Hartford where we brought in a congressional leader, lenders, our resource partners, and ourselves to directly do outreach to the small businesses. But I'd like to give a lot of credit to our resource partners. Resource partners like the Spanish American Merchants Association would go door to door to those businesses to spread that word of eligibility. I think we have a lot of hurdles. We are going through and clearing those hurdles right now. But the most important thing is for sole proprietors to know that this PPP loan is for them. So reaching out to them, and the best way is through these organizations, through these resource partners, or just through our outreach to the Urban League, to the NAACP, through chamber events. We continue to stress this. I can't speak on the specifics of that article that you're reading, but I do know that in Connecticut, we are redoubling our efforts. And you are correct that when the PPP reopened this year, it did reopen to the smallest lenders in those communities to make sure that they had the first access to the funding. But if you can give us any suggestions or any contacts, we will take them and follow through with them to continue our outreach.
Also,
Okay.
also on Catherine and Senator, under the act, there was a set aside of, if I'm correct, of $10 billion for businesses under 10 employees. This was not in the original act. So even if the funding was taken on by the larger of the companies, 10 billion was set aside for 10 employees or less, which is basically the majority of our small businesses.
No, we did a much better job second time around. The problem is that the time that it took in between was so crucial to those very small, vulnerable businesses. And lastly, so in Connecticut, you said have to date accessed $1 billion of the 284 billion. How does that stack up with the rest?
Okay. That's a great question. And that data is as of January 31st. I was hoping that I have new data before I came onto this committee, and I don't. And we are tracking a bit higher right now, just a small amount higher than we did in 2020. In 2020, through the PPP program brought in $6.7 billion into Connecticut.
And on a per capita basis, how does that, compare us?
I haven't checked with other states. All I know is that our percentage of the total amount appropriated is tracking from 2020 as to the data that I have as of January 31st. I do not have the per capita or the per business comparison.
Oh, okay, thanks, Mary. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, for those questions. I want to turn it over. It looks like we have Senator Martin next with his hand up, followed by Senator McCrory.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Catherine, I'm just to follow up with Senator Hartley's last question. So if I'm to understand you, there's a $1 billion that came into Connecticut, or $6 billion, but the $1 billion. I guess my original question was this: out of the CARES Act money, how much is it allocated by state? And is that what you're referencing to, that we received $6 billion and we maxed it out?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. And sometimes when you're so in the weeds, you might not sort of think about that. It's the state of Connecticut is not allocated. Connecticut businesses and entities that are eligible are not allocated a certain amount. the program is open, and that program's open until the total funding, the total congressional appropriation funding dries up. So that's why it was so important in the first 20 days of it opening in 2021, we surpassed the 1 billion mark because our businesses were ready to apply, our lenders were ready to take those applications, and our resource partners were helping those small businesses to get those applications in and approved. So that 1 billion is actually approved loans just in the first 20 days of this opening up in 2021.
Got it. So we're actually competing against the whole country or states in the country, right? So, okay,
Correct.
so it's
Yeah.
important that we tell our constituents to, if you want to apply quickly. Okay,
Exactly.
And
Senator
that's why-
Martin, that $6 million was money that was the loans that were made in Connecticut. That $6 billion that Catherine talked about in 2020 was the amount of money that was loaned out here in the state of Connecticut.
and if we continue at the current pace, it sounds like we're well
ahead.
organized. We're well
Yeah.
organized right now, and
Yeah.
that we could exceed $6 billion
Yes, sir. Yes.
if those businesses, start applying. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly here. The EIDL, what rate is that at? It's a loan, the economic injury disaster.
3.75% for 30 years. 3.75. If you're a business, non-for-profit is 2.75 for non-for-profit.
Correct.
Okay,
Fixed is a fixed term, fixed rate,
And it's a
term
fixed
loan.
rate. First year is, you're not paying any interest and principal in year one during the loan.
and is that for equipment and operating costs? Is that
Working
purchasing?
operational expenses can't be used for equipment
Okay,
or expansion. If you do, you need permission from our disaster area.
got it.
It's
Going to the P,
it's 6 months of working capital.
okay. So regarding the PPP, if a restaurant missed the application for the first round and they want to apply now, can they go retroactively, go back and get funds for the season that they've missed here, or go back to March of last year? So they missed the first round of PPP.
Right. The way the program was originally launched, they're borrowing based on employees. So and their personal, basically their income. So the owner's income, bottom line of whatever that is, plus a payroll, which is based on basically a calculation of 2.5 months or 10 weeks, is what the program in the first tranche will give them, up to 2.5 times. Basically, the formula is 2.5 times. I'll give you a quick number. My payroll is $12,000. I divided by 12 equals 1,000. I multiplied it by 2.5 times. I would get from the bank $2,500 in tranche one. The second draw, the legislation changed for restaurants that have an NAIC code of 72. And these are also accommodation industry hotels. They can now borrow under 3.5 times what the regular retail businesses or manufacturers could of 2.5 times. So under the second tranche, if they went in and borrowed under the second draw, that same formula, restaurant would go in $12,000 payroll divided by 12 equals 1,000, multiplied by 3.5 times. They would get in the second tranche $3,500 because Congress saw a need for restaurants and the accommodation industry to, because of their struggles, they decided to up the formula so that they could borrow a little bit more, which technically is a grant once they accomplish what they were supposed to do. But if they never borrowed and they went into the first draw, they would only be able to tap in 2.5 times. But the second draw would be 3.5 times.
Thank you, Julio. But I guess I'm trying to understand can they go back retroactively if they missed the first tranche of the first draw?
Yeah.
but
They can
now
go
it's
back.
nine,
Yes.
so they can go
Yes.
back. It'll be a 2.5 times, and from here forward, it would be 3.5 times. Is that
Right,
correct?
the
second
reg
time
is,
around.
right, the way legislation said is that they cannot apply for the second draw if they never applied for the first. They got to go back to the first draw, complete the use of those funds, and then they could apply for the second draw.
Got it, but they can go back and apply.
Right.
Okay, last question is, regarding some of these barbershops and smaller businesses, the hair studios, and there are many others. But a lot of them are part-timers, may have a full-time job, may have a part-time job, but they supplement their income with the, being a hair studio, so to speak. So some of them were denied because they had this other job. So is there provisions in this new batch of money that sort of, fills in this void? That makes sense to you?
Well, usually if they're 10, and again, I'll jump in and maybe Catherine, if they're a 1099 employee, they're allowed to use the 1099 income to qualify under the PPP. If they're self-employed, they should have been filing a Schedule C, which would allow them to account for their line 31, which is their gross, which is their income, not the gross income, their income on the Schedule C, which would have been attached to the 1040 personal tax return. So that's what they would use. Now, the issue would come in is if they wound up applying for unemployment, the reg doesn't allow them to do one or the other, but that's not our call. They would have to speak with the Department of Labor to see whether or not they can apply for PPP using, because they could only, it's all CARES Act money. So they're either applying for PPP or going to unemployment if they decided to do that.
Yeah, I don't think they applied for unemployment. I think the issue was they lost a portion of their income because they were told you can't cut hair. At that time, they can't cut hair, but they had this other part-time job which was, their,
No, it was based on what they have to submit is their 2019 tax return. So say, for instance, they were shut down between March and June. What they were supposed to provide to the bank was a 2019 tax return that showed how much income they made in 2019.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Martin. Next, we have Senator McCrory.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Catherine and Julio and Frank for their presentation. I read it ahead of time, so I went through it thoroughly. I'm going to be totally honest and frank with you all. I have a lot of trepidation, and this is why. First, I didn't hear what guidelines are different in the second round of funding. What are we going to do differently? And this is the reason why I asked. I read an article, I did some research. First tranche of money, 70% went to white males, 10% to white business owners, 75%, 10% to Asian business owners, 6% to Hispanic business owners, and 3% to African American business owners. That was the first time around. We got shortchanged, in my opinion. Those are my facts, okay? And I haven't heard anything differently of how we're gonna operationalize with banks. The reality is, unless you have a loan with a particular lending institution, those institutions are gonna take care of people who have their loans with them. That's a fact. We, in the community that I represent, I heard Catherine said she did something in North Hartford. I live in North Hartford. I represent North Hartford. She mentioned a number of institutions, NWAC, Urbaling. I'm a member of all of them. None of this has been on their radar. No one is talking about this. The outreach is horrible. And what I would like to know is, how are we going to ask these lending institutions who do not have a banking relationship with all those small minority business, ethnic minority business, they do not have a banking relationship. Their application, if it's in the pile, is at the bottom of the pile. That's what happened the first time around. What are we going to do differently this time around that we didn't do last time around? I got involved last time around because I kept hearing from small businesses how they couldn't get through. None of the banks were required to. The law did not require these lending institutions to work with these businesses. What are we going to do differently? That's my first question. Then I'll follow up my other two questions.
Okay, I'll take that one. I'm sorry that you haven't heard from the Urban League or the NAACP regarding our outreach.
It hasn't been effective. It
Okay.
hasn't been effective at all.
Well, what I would like to offer is I would like to join you on a webinar to do that outreach. You pick the day, 7 days a week, 24/7. I will be welcome to do that outreach. And I'd like to also invite a resource partner, because what we do know is that what the best way to have success is to go into the lending institution with the complete application, with all your information available. So we would like to make sure that the businesses that you would be able to contact us with would have that free resource. And we have talked to lenders. They are very interested. We did bring lenders in with Congressman Larson directly into, and I'm sorry that you didn't hear about it. If we do it again, I will ensure that you hear about it. And they were able to talk, directly to these small business to get their questions answered. Your frustration is not it's not singular, and we're working, and that's why we're here today. So if you would like, to work on a webinar, we can have one of our team members, we can have a resource partner, and we can have a lender on to answer questions. We've had success in doing that outreach, and we don't have the numbers yet, Senator. For I have the numbers only for 2021 on a high level, so I just have that $1 billion number. So I don't yet have those on a granular level to show that we've done better. But let's hope that when we do find those numbers, we do better. But I will offer to you right here, right now, we will make ourselves 100% available to you to get this information out.
So I would like to say this is not about me. This is not about me. This is about serving communities that have been underserved, underbanked, or in many cases not banked at all. So please don't make this about me, okay? Secondly, I still haven't heard anything about how are we gonna get lenders to serve communities that they have not served differently. You mentioned when the second act came around, the first 10 days, they were supposed to hit the hardest, the communities that hit hardest. Those 10 days are over and done with. Now the floodgates are open for everyone. And I'm telling you now, based on the facts that I know, based on all the businesses that I've been talking to in my community that missed the first round, don't know much about the second round, we need to do better. So I will be reaching out to you and everyone else on this so we could put a plan together. Because right now I am very, very uncomfortable. You mentioned your CFI lenders and your non-traditional lenders. Can your non-traditional lenders get these applications, these grant opportunities out to the public? Or do they have to go through one of your commercial banks?
Well, we reached out to HEDCO early on in the process, and HEDCO did not get involved. And these are the things we reach out to those organizations.
That's not true, sir. I'm in touch with HEDCO on a regular basis. They were
They're
waiting, and they were not a part of the initial conversation.
They're not
they
a
were
PPP.
Not a part of the initial conversation.
We reached out to them. They're not a PPP lender. And so we need to engage them to become a PPP lender so that they can lend under the program. They're a micro lender with us, but not a PPP lender right now.
And why is that?
You'd have to ask them. We've
Okay, but they were
early on.
not probably built for that. I don't think that was they came up to be a bank. I'm not going to continue to go back and forth with you. What I will do is reach out to Catherine, reach out with you and Frank,
Yeah.
so we can sit down and come up a strategy.
Sure.
Because it's not working. It's not working. It didn't work the first time around, and I'm not hearing anything differently for how we're going to make it work the second time around. We don't need John Larson to have a meeting in North and Hartford to get this done. This is about business, economics, and opportunity. And I'm not hearing anything that makes me feel comfortable. But I will reach out to you next week, and we will sit down and just come up with a plan. I am very, very uncomfortable. And I will also say this. You say that we already put in for $1 billion in Connecticut. King, when I meet with you next week, can you give me the demographics on who of that $1 billion, who put in for it? I want it demographically by ethnic minorities and gender. We're not making good strides in my opinion. So lastly, I would like to ask a little more about your, I think you called it the EIDL program for the hardest hit community. Can you speak a little clearly about that again? What
Sure.
is that? Is that a grant? Is that a loan? And what are we going to do specifically? Because this EIDL, you sound like you have two EIDL programs. You have a general one, and then you mentioned something about hard hit communities. What is the difference in the hard hit EIDL program that is different from your traditional program?
Sure, I'll take that. The EIDL targeted advance is for the hard hit communities, and that is a grant. So it's not a loan. The traditional EIDL is a loan. This is a grant. It started last year of a grant of $10,000. Not all businesses received that $10,000. So the SBA is going back to those businesses. Let's say they only received 3,000. We're going back to them to see if they're able to apply to get brought up to that $10,000. It is, we're reaching out to those businesses. It's happening right now to talk to them about applying to receive a grant up to $10,000.
Who's marketing this program to the community, to the businesses? Because I listen to TV sometimes, I watch TV sometimes, I listen to the radio sometimes, I read the newspapers, especially the local newspapers. I don't see anything about this program.
This is, the SBA is contacting the businesses themselves.
So the SBA had, one thing we know about Connecticut, we don't even have a list of minority businesses in Connecticut. We don't have that. It hasn't been updated in 30 years. And that's coming from the Secretary of State's office. So if you're reaching out to businesses, you're going to get a lot of bad numbers. If the strategy is to call businesses up, that'll be very, you know what, I'll say this for our meeting next week. Because these are the things that we can go into. Because now you can see why I'm very uncomfortable about your strategies. But I want to be successful. I want to win. So I'll reach out to your office next week, and hopefully we get all three of us online so we can come up with something that actually works. Thank you. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCrory. And next we have Representative Stephanie Thomas.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I was late this morning. I got caught up at another meeting. So if this wasn't discussed, we can talk offline. Similar to Senator McCrory, so I own a small business, so I went through the PPP process, first draw, second draw, found it complicated, as many sole proprietors did. But the people who called me are a few businesses that I patronize locally, where the problem seemed to lie is in these small businesses and how we reach them. Because, you know, I would say, oh, well, I got a e-blast from my Chamber of Commerce highlighting that I should be looking on line 31 of my Schedule C. But like that, I never saw that officially anywhere listed. And they said, oh, we can't afford membership in the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that many small business owners don't have time to belong to groups like the NAACP, like they are literally spending 20 hours a day supporting their business. So could you talk a little bit more about how you are reaching out to these people who may be operating off the grid because they don't have any spare income or volunteer time to participate in these types of organizations? Like, how do we reach and help them?
Okay, so the resource partners, I don't know if you heard the resource partners that we have, they're free. So there's no fee to go to them. There's no fee to join them. And there are literally webinars every day that will walk them through. Julio is participating in one at noon today that is just for sole proprietors to actually walk them through the process. And this is through SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. So, you know, if you go on to, you know, our Twitter, you can share that these webinars are free. The webinars are recorded, so people can access them when they want to access them. We do them in the evening because we do know that small business owners work 24/7, and we do them in non-English languages as well. So there is, we do understand that it can be complicated for small businesses, but these webinars are meant to help walk them through the process. But if you call the SBDC, they will set up a business advisor with that small business and walk them through it. I've seen them help, you know, walk through the whole process for an EIDL loan. And yes, you have to know where to find the SBDC, but it's there, and that's one of the things that we try to really point out, that there are free resources to be accessed to help people through this process.
That was going to be my thought. People characterize me as a joiner, right? Like, so I'm always looking for something, and I, during the first draw, I was not aware of, the WBDC in Stamford. I hadn't been aware, but I Googled a bunch and I found it, and I went to a webinar and they explained it. It was fantastic. But the group of people I'm talking about are people who don't even know to look for it. Like, they're not aware that it exists. So is there any sort of direct to business, although it sounds like we don't have a database per se, but is there any other way, like ads or articles in some of the local papers, you know, not the Hour, but, you know, some of the smaller media that could help educate people about where to look?
Right. I know the SBDC is advertising in things like The Agent, which is a North End newspaper, you know, to try to do that outreach. I can't speak for the advertising for the WBDC or some of the other organizations, or SAMA or the Black Business Alliance. I can't speak to any of their advertising or their outreach.
Yeah, I'll just leave it that even with the second draw, I still have had really small businesses express, like, when I tell them you are eligible, you can do this, the fact that it was released to the non-traditional or not the larger lenders first, I thought was great for the second draw, but people just weren't aware. So I think I would just highlight, again, that it is an enduring problem. And I think the intent of the federal legislation and the state in getting this money into our state to help these businesses is leaving, I think, some of the smaller entities that are most in need behind. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, just to mention, we don't have a budget per se for advertising. I wish we did. And so most of the way we reach out to our communities, word of mouth, emails, blasts that we do, Twitter, anything that is free for us to reach out to the community. And that's all our tools here. And this is something that not only in this state, but in most of the other states, all the SBA offices are the same, limited with the advertising budget. It's not included in for us to spend.
Thank you. Maybe I'll write a bill about that.
We do partner with the Department of Community and Economic Development. Commissioner Lehman does, get our information out as well. But it takes many avenues to try to reach everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Representative Thomas. And next we have Representative Exum.
Hi, good morning, and thank you so much for this presentation. It's good to see you. And I appreciate this information, and I do believe that I just have to echo the comments that were made a little bit earlier, because I just Googled while we were sitting here, the Urban League. I Googled the NAACP. I don't see it on there. If it's on there, it's embedded, and it should be front and center given what we're up against right now. So I would think that though you don't have a big advertising budget, that looking again at trusted community places, looking at the barbershops, looking at the churches, having things more as flyers. Everyone doesn't have internet access. Everyone doesn't have technology at their disposal that they use. But I do believe that we have to do a better job, because we've missed this group before. And here we have this opportunity again. And I have received, some email about people. I was telling some individuals who said, I can't figure out how to do this. And I told them about the resources that I've learned about recently, that they could connect to, particularly with the Women's Business Development Council. But I would just encourage you to think about some of those they may seem like simple ways, but they may be the most effective tools to reach the people that we're really trying to reach that were missed the first time. So I just wanted to offer that advice as well. Thank you.
Usually in normal times, I'd be out in the street visiting businesses as part of my job, but because of COVID, it makes it very difficult to be out there. And the way of communication right now is webinars, which is not easy. A lot of folks don't have the capability or capacity or the equipment to do this. And so this technology is impacting us as much, trying to reach to that small population, because I live in that community. And so to reach out to it is visiting them, talking to them, finding the locations that they tend to congregate and have eating there. And all these things have been kind of taken out for a while, and it makes it very difficult because of it. Now we're also trying to do it in Spanish. We just and we're just having also one in Chinese. Trying to do it in multi-language to try to reach out to those specific population that have difficulty even in language. And so we're trying to do as much as possible, but we're limited the size of staff we have here in Connecticut. We just a total of eight employees covering the whole state. And so we try to partner with DCD, with the other organizations, and our biggest impact really is when we do the webinars and try to get as much information out to the public.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Representative. Let me just check the chat. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none on the chat, I did get a text question from Representative Wood about programs or resources available for new businesses. One of the things I've heard is that, there's programs in place for businesses that, had started prior to the pandemic, but in terms of new businesses that are launched, any resources you would recommend there?
Well, we have our microloan programs are fully operational. We have our resource partners who can sit down and help that person develop a business plan, a viable business plan that should be ready when they walk into a lender, and say, I want to borrow money to start this sort of business. And the first question of the banker or the lender is, you have a business plan. So our resources are available to help that person develop a business plan. Microloans are available. As was mentioned, the 7A is still available for new businesses. So yeah, I mean, some new businesses are, despite the COVID crisis, there are some new businesses opening up, and we're there. We're more than happy to help, and people can really reach out to us directly as well. We have dedicated people in the office that can answer questions and set them on the right path to entrepreneurship. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but there are resources available. Yes.
We also have CEDF, the Community Economic Development Fund. They're in Meriden. They do have microloans under them, and also they have loans that are available outside of the SBA, which they can lend using funds that were provided to them by banks and also state. And then you have EDCO here in the city that also provides loans under the MRLF program. And if I'm right, in one of the state programs, and you should look it up, is that they're limited in that program because the business has to be in existence for 1 year. So even on some of these state programs that you have out there, there's a limitation. So please look at that and see if maybe that can be tweaked so that those funds can be used for startups.
Great, thank you, Julio, for that information. Thank you, Frank. Just checking to see if there were any other hands raised. Okay, not seeing any other hands. Just checking the chat for any questions. Oh, we do have a question from Representative Liebert. Is there a list of resource partners available? Catherine, I know you touched on this.
Yes, so it's in the PowerPoint with all the contact information. So I believe Ginger will be sending the PowerPoint if she hasn't sent it already. And then they're all on our website as well. So there are multiple places.
Great, thank you very much. So yes, we will make sure to circulate the PowerPoint to everyone after this call. Any other questions? Okay, well, seeing none, we want to thank you so much, Catherine, Julio, and Frank, for your time today. Thank you to all the senators and representatives for joining us and for your thoughtful questions. Please, make sure to stay in touch with Catherine, Frank, and Julio if they can be helpful in your districts. And hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and see you all again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.